Hello and welcome to session 319 in the AISafety.com reading group. Tonight, Lau Mein will be presenting DeepSeek R1, a breakthrough. Thank you, Lau Mein. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, this isn't my best work because I've been kind of sick and insomniac lately, but this is my presentation about DeepSeek R1. Now, I haven't really seen a really good summary of DeepSeek R1 that goes through like the technical and performance details and how it interacts with like Chinese politics and stuff like that. I actually won't go through most of that, but just if you're curious about anything, ask me questions at any time. Like I think that's just my personal preference for these sort of presentations, because like because I don't want people to like hold on to questions and then forget about them. Anyways, so top level details. What is DeepSeek R1? Well, DeepSeek R1 is a reasoning model built on top of DeepSeek V3. DeepSeek V3 was a model built by DeepSeek, and it used something like $6 million worth of compute and roughly 3 million H800 hours for its final training run. Relatively little additional compute was used to train R1, but that's we don't really have the exact details of that. I'm just basing this off of what other people have analyzed based on the architecture of R1. So interestingly enough, it specifically used non-CUDA machine code optimizations for specifically H800s, which is like a lot more effort than you would expect someone at OpenAI to do. Like non-CUDA machine code optimizations. That's actually pretty nuts, though. In the grand scheme of deep learning, everyone just uses like I don't know Python libraries or whatever. So $6 million for the final training run seems to be mostly correct. There have been replications, and the results are roughly what you would expect.
One
Uptake in
one quick
China.
comment. I think the numbers I've heard from GPT-4, the training run is something like between 50 and $100 million. So this is
Yes.
like roughly 1/10. Yeah.
No, because GPT-4 was released I think in the same week as the H100. So like it was using less efficient compute. And like
Yeah.
what were they even doing before H100s? Were they just straight up using graphics cards? Like you having purpose-built hardware is actually really important for this sort of thing. So I like it's not really 10 times less compute, but it is significantly less compute. Okay. And a lot of the gains really do come from like having to use, oh, sorry, give me a second. I want to see the message. Okay. So yeah, speaking of which, yeah. Mass layoffs for video games. I those are mostly a thing. I've seen multiple Chinese articles about that. I think I brought it up multiple times during our discussions. It happened basically immediately. Like once I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago when people were really impressed by like the first wave of AI generated art that was like good enough to use commercially. Yeah, the moment that happened, people got laid off in China for like, you know, shitty MOBA game art development, but like it's crept upwards. And right now, I've read that basically every single teacher in Chinese art schools are pushing their students to use AI art. And they have this attitude of, well, do whatever you need in order to do this. But if you spend a month and like 80 man hours and your friend does it in 2 hours, guess who's going to get hired and who isn't? So it's like there is the same kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's very like romantic. Oh no, this will destroy the beauty and humanity or whatever that you don't really see in China. I guess we're a very practical people. But yeah, basically everyone I know is using R1. Like but everyone who has a desktop job in my extended family is using R1, and the ones that aren't are using GPT-4. So there's that. And the thing is, it's as good as the best GPT-4 models, and it's for free, and it's not rate limited. So it's So yeah, except for a few very niche, well, not very niche, but a few very specific things, R1 is just so much better than GPT-4. When you take into account those logistical limitations. Anyways, so the replication mostly checks out. There have been multiple open source effort. Do people? Oh, sorry. Do people complain about the AI slop there? Not really. It's more like just people don't like low effort AI stuff, and like people do spend a lot of time polishing them. So it's less like people hate AI slop and more people hate bad art. Like there just isn't a huge counter reaction against AI art stuff, and there kind of is, but like the companies just don't care at all, and they're just letting everyone off anyways. So yeah, replication checks out. There have been open source stuff. There's like Open R1. There hasn't been a full replication because in order to build the base V3 model, you have to have their data set, and DeepSeek is holding that specific thing very close to their chest. But yeah, the evals for distilled and full models have been replicated. They're pretty open about this stuff. You know, it's an open source project. IBM had to stack the deck against Kasparov because they weren't sure they were going to win. DeepSeek is very sure that R1 is as good as they say it is. Yeah. There are a few algorithmic insights. They're like just a bunch of stuff that DeepSeek has published over the years. They used certain calculations um, in 8-bit instead of 32-bit precision. There's multi-head latent attention and sparse mixture of expert multi-head latent attentions. Like they're training the AI to compress its attention head matrices. Like I yeah, it's like multiple attention heads will use parts of the same attention matrix. It's really interesting stuff. And sparse mixture of experts, it kind of increases computational efficiency. GPT-4, yeah, you mentioned GPT-4 costs like 50 million. The recent stuff I read recently is 60 million, which I assume is just inflation.
I
And yeah,
I think I said
early
50
training,
to 100. We don't
yeah,
actually know the number, right? So it's just like
yeah, it's just eyeballs.
yeah.
So yeah, anyways, so the early training, like right after they have like the base model, they generated a bunch of programming and math tasks and just had the models uh and fine tune them on that well in time refining. It have did reinforcement learning on getting the right answer. Like I don't even think there was very much. I think it was more about the right answer and less about right process because uh oh yeah. Okay. Right process. But in order to solve a really complicated programming task, you have to either be an insanely good programmer in your bones, or you have to have like be able to sort through your thoughts, go through every, um, data structure and libraries and how everything connects and like all the tips and tricks to make sure everything like you can hold the entire project in your mind at the same time. And in a way, those two are the same things when it comes down to output, except for if you're trying to do something very novel. So yeah, data for fine tuning user interactions came from other LLMs. It was obviously GPT-4. I'll get into that later. So I like tokenizers, and I looked at the tokenizer for Grok. So for tokenizer for DeepSeek R1, turned out they had the longest token I've ever seen, and it translates to new Xi Jinping socialism with Chinese characteristics thought, which is pretty impressive. This is a thing that you would hear in like official Chinese boilerplate press releases, and the way those happen is unless it's like a big deal and there's like cameras trained on the person giving the press release, they don't actually do the press releases anymore. They just email everyone the exact same press release, and all the media companies have to post it on their website by law. So you have like the same thing over and over again with the same phrases and cliches. And you see this in other models, like GPT-4o had socialism with Chinese characteristics. Um, yeah. So but that does imply different training data. I'll get into that later. The M dash appears a lot sooner in R1, which might imply more GPT-4 output. Um, it used to train its base model. So there's also some other stuff I'll get into later with regards to English to Chinese machine translation artifacts. So yeah, this is my code. I've posted it. It's in. I posted the PPT for this presentation in our Discord chat. But yeah, this is the code for just looking at R1's tokenizer. And bizarrely, wait, yeah, okay. Did I skip that? Yeah. So glitch tokens definitely still exist for R1, and the easiest way I found to find glitch tokens is to just go by sort by longest and like find tokens
Excuse
that look.
me. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Lamin, could you just explain what a glitch token is?
Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so glitch tokens are tokens where if you ask a model what is token X, and token X is a glitch token, it'll just do something really, really bizarre. Let me show you an example. So I'll ask it, based entirely off of vibes, what does everyday calculation mean? And it responds with, okay, the user is asking about LCM Ride and how it might have entered my tokenizer. It is an entirely unrelated thing, and it's not even a real word or a single token. It's like there's three different tokens that I cobble together for like completely for like basically no reason. It is utterly bizarre, and this was first brought up a couple of years ago in like GPT-3, ChatGPT, and also GPT-2. But you still see it in basically every single LLM. I have a post on Less Wrong, several posts, yeah, two posts on Less Wrong about this specifically if you want to look into it more. But yeah, R1
Yeah.
also has glitch tokens, and yeah, you can see stuff like what is post superscript, and it just assumes it like apparently perceives it as like a caret symbol. Now, this is especially damaging to chain of thought models because that relies on the output of the model itself in order to do thinking. But if the model's thought, if it can't hold the original token in its thoughts in like English conversational text, it can't really, think about that token, which is kind of a weakness. Anyways, this is like probably core property of LLMs, because a lot of those tokens are like specific to um, non-conversational English context. Like post superscript is like some kind of programming thing. Everyday calculation is like some kind of internet hypertext thing. So if you see that in conversational English, you're supposed to ignore it because it just means like the website was scraped badly or whatever. So that's just a behavior that the model learns very early to do. And if you ask it, what is the thing you're supposed to ignore really hard in plain English, it just gets confused and hurts itself. So yeah, very interestingly, R1 specifically has a bunch of very long M tokens, like up to 64 just capital M's. I have no idea where this came from. I've never seen this in any other LLM tokenizer. Um, I've seen some like ASCII art and badly formatted PPTs that have a lot of M's, but like the PPTs mostly have lowercase M's. Anyways, I came up with a theory that maybe like I can just post a very specific string over and over again, and maybe it can make its way and see if it makes its way into like future tokenizers, so I can tell if it like badly scraped a particular web page. That would be pretty interesting, and I'll probably try it at some point. Yeah, personal experience. It's as good as GPT-4 and free and not throttled. So incredibly good. Censorship is not done to the base model. All right, if you say something you're not supposed to the model, there's like this other classifier that will slap it. Oh, well, that would just cut off communication and say, sorry, I can't do that anymore. So in a fundamental sense, it's much less censored than GPT-4. It has more personality. When I used it for coding, sometimes it will just make up stuff, like entire concepts that are number one made up and number two doesn't work at all, and the code it gives me just doesn't work at all. But that's to be expected from LLMs at this point. But yeah, once again, you can't be free. So chain of thought specifically is worse in Chinese, which is bizarre, but there's a reason for that. Very, very interestingly, it's good at recognizing errors in its own logic, which is something that they had in the paper saying, whoa, it can like say, wait a minute, but that's wrong. But I've also seen it do that, but go around in circles for like page after page after page. But at the end of the day, it still gives you the right result for the specific case in which that happened, which I find is really interesting. So yeah. Now, how do I know they were using GPT-4 data? Well, first of all, it refers it to itself as ChatGPT or OpenAI, or implies that it's an LLM developed by OpenAI. It will bring this up like out of nowhere. So yeah, it was obviously using a lot of GPT outputs. So, but then again, basically all models do this occasionally. So maybe I should have had a bigger sample size. That's number one. Number two, its Chinese chain of thought can be extraordinarily weird. It reads very much like machine translated, like it reads like English chain of thought, but machine translated poorly into Chinese. And when I first saw this, my idea was that they were machine translating like Chat GPT English chain of thought into Chinese for whatever reason, because that just sounded like something that Chinese people would do. Like if I were a Chinese researcher, and I am a Chinese researcher, uh, that would be the first thing I would think of if I needed more Chinese language chain of thought. I mean, I would actually get a good translation software, but that's different. Anyways, and then the thing that impressed me the most, this is the most impressive analysis it did, because this is like one very specific string I found in GPT-4's tokenizer. And I was very confused. And the only other place I found it was in like the tokenizers for other LLMs. And I asked it, and it managed to figure out that it was actually like 4 letters over and over again that were representing like what, like 8 bits, 8-bit bytes of blank space over and over again, and it's like format, but like in 6-bit, but represented as 6-bit data. So I found that extremely interesting, and I was extremely impressed. Maybe this isn't that impressive, and this is the first thing you would think to do if you're familiar with like specific types of data structures like this. But I am very impressed by this because I could not have done this. So yeah. Anyways, DeepSeek seems like a fundamentally competent organization. Like they will go really far to clean their input text, to like sanitize their tokenizer, make sure the whole thing works right. Like it looks like there isn't anything incredibly stupid and weird inside its tokenizer, which is something you can't say about OpenAI. Anyways, there are still some weird stuff like just blank space for like 64 or 100 or like 200 something tokens, because there's a lot of that on the internet. Like people will just have the equal sign like 100 times as a divider on their blog or whatever. And you want stuff like that to be tokenized because to be tokenized like that, so the AI kind of like knows to ignore it. But if you waste too many tokens in that, it will decrease performance because tokens are expensive, so on and so forth. And also DeepSeek use forced single integer tokenization, which is something that Grok also does. I know that Anthropic uses 2-digit integer tokenization and GPT-4 uses 3-digit. I really don't know like what the exact. I mean, I can guess that this is like to avoid weird stuff happening in conversational English in relation to numbers, because you don't want it to be like too associated with coding or whatever. Oh, anyways, moving on. Here's my code to just do the same thing for GPT-4o's tokenizer. It's actually a lot easier because there's this thing called tick token, which is used to be very computationally efficient when tokenizing large chunks of text. Like other tokenizer libraries would take like a really long time and to do something, whereas TickToken would do it basically instantly. Anyways, let's take a look at GPT-4o's tokens. Like these are the actual Chinese tokens inside GPT-4o. We have like lottery spam, Japanese porn spam, socialism with Chinese characteristics, and a daily NBA lottery, which doesn't sound like a real thing, but this was like variations of this appeared so many times. I have to assume that NBA lotteries, like what would an NBA lottery even be? I am very confused.
The National Basketball Association in the United States, like a lot of Chinese
Yes,
people
yes,
care about that, and like a lot of
yeah.
Chinese people care about gambling. So, like,
It's just NBA flavored lotteries. I don't. It's like I don't know. Maybe it's actually sports betting or something. That would actually make more sense. Anyways, but yeah, it's real bad because the longest in, Chinese token, sorry, yeah, Chinese language token in GPT-4o translates as Japanese first grade extreme pervert porno long video. That is literally the longest Chinese language token in GPT-4o, and it's still there. They're still using the same tokenizer in the release they had last month. So yeah, how did things get this bad? Like that is an entire sentence of porn spam. How did that make its way into the tokenizer? Well, they obviously included a degenerate amount of spam into training their tokenizer. And the thing is, you have to make several really bad decisions in a row in order to get to that particular result. Because if they were just sorry, because if they had just looked at the tokenizer after they trained it, they could have just picked stuff like this out and realized they had a really big problem with their training data. And they could have just spent some effort on cleaning the training data, but they didn't do that because they're lazy. And I'll get into that later. Uh, so yeah, and if they were like, and they could have just, you know, blacklisted those specific spam tokens and then cleaned the data as they train the model, right? Batch by batch, they have to make sure each batch is cleaned of the spam data. And like you could just, yeah, like I said, you could just blacklist the spam tokens. It doesn't take that much effort. It literally takes minutes. So yeah, by the way, this is still in GPT 4.1, which released last month. So here's an idea. What if OpenAI's entire value came from a single insight? So Gwern had this really, really good post called the scaling hypothesis, where it's basically saying that OpenAI really believed in the scaling hypothesis when no one else did, right? Everyone else laughed at them, but OpenAI kept going, and they invested an unreasonable amount of money on compute, on scaling their models. They made it big with GPT-3, GPT-4. Okay, this attracts a huge amount of talent, and this meant that their league got bigger and bigger. But I also had this back and forth, which with Gwern, where he was saying specifically like, yeah, everyone knows you're supposed to clean your data, but no one wants to eat their vegetables. So even though it would take literally minutes to hours to fix and will benefit OpenAI for years to come, as well as saving potentially a lot of money. By the way, we're still talking about the same tokenizer. We had this conversation like more than a year ago. Same tokenizer. It's still like decreasing GPT-4's performance to this very day. Interesting stuff. So, believing the scaling hypothesis means you're investing an unreasonable amount of compute and data to train your models. 50,000 H100s is like what, $1 billion? What if they spent $1 billion to hire like 10,000 crack Chinese AI researchers and just do full-time Blue Sky's AI algorithm R&D? Maybe that's like the next scaling hypothesis. You just invest an unreasonable amount of effort into scaling your algorithms for efficiency. Or you could just spend a reasonable amount of effort, which OpenAI does not seem to do. So what are my personal updates? Well, I think Gordon was right all along. OpenAI is just they're just ignoring free money on the ground because their engineers are lazy and don't want to clean their data. They could have just contracted this work out, by the way, but they were that lazy, I guess. I don't know. Like I previously had this idea that like all of their glitch tokens, like all the incredibly long spam tokens, served a good role in like allowing it to use huge amounts of unfiltered data. But obviously, if you just spend a small amount of effort on filtering the data, you can get to something like R1. Oh, that's oversimplifying, but yeah. Anyways, I think researcher culture in China and the United States are fundamentally different, and that Chinese researchers tend to like clap up if they get something really good, whereas U.S. researchers just can't stop shutting up, can't stop yelling about it. But DeepSeek does seem ideologically committed to open source for now, and they stress curiosity for over saving the world, which I guess is a really good way to draw Chinese talent because we don't want to save the world, we want to satisfy our curiosity and make a huge amount of money. But yeah, but what actually happens in China, which is what's happened in bioinformatics, my personal field, is that like you have all these siloed companies and they won't share data with each other. So maybe DeepSeek was a reaction to stuff like that, but it's just what I'm trying to say is Chinese companies have the ability to just tap their employees on the shoulder and say, this is really important. Just don't talk about this on social media. Don't talk about this to anyone in real life. Otherwise, you're violating your NDA, and we will sue you until you go bankrupt. And people take that seriously, which apparently they kind of don't in the United States because things leak a lot more in the United States than in China. At least that's my perception of it. So how does DeepSeek pay for itself? Well, it fucking doesn't. Like all of these startups, like Uber, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, Airbnb, they're all like made negative profits while they were scaling. The more money you lose, the more customers you attract, and the more long-term profits you can pull. Like Amazon's still like operating on razor thin profits the last time I checked. So there's that. And DeepSeek has gotten a huge amount of investment ever since they released R1. So yeah, they can burn money for a couple of years. They don't care, you know. Well, okay, 100 times cheaper is an exaggeration and a typo, but yeah, whatever. The point is, there's also the issue of proprietary data sets. The one thing that DeepSeek has held close to their chest is the data set for their base model. How did they train their original base model? Well, we have a few guesses. Probably GPT-4 output was in there. Um, you know, I could try to do more archaeology on their tokenizer, try to figure out exactly which websites were getting scraped, so on and so forth. But yeah, there's well, Ollie said that his impression that they're an ideologically driven passion project by a crazy, cracked, and wealthy hedge fund. They don't make money because that's not the point. Um, it's it's true, and also they want to make money, and also making money is the point. Like it can be true that they're ideologically driven passion project by a crazy, cracked, and wealthy hedge fund. Like that attracts people like crack in China. People want to work for places like that. I want to work for places like that. But only if they give me some equity. Otherwise, like no one's going to work there. You can't just expect people to work for ideology in China like you can in the United States. So yeah, the problem with DeepSeek that might not be fixable is the fact that it is limited by the Chinese firewall. So when I asked it to do a web search on Twitter, it said it couldn't do it. All right, and then I asked it, well, okay, look inside yourself, look inside your memory. What's Twitter stuff is in there? And like it gave me a bunch of Chinese websites. So yeah, it's limited by China. Like this is so extreme that if you ask it something, a question in English and set web search on, it'll occasionally default to Chinese chain of thought because so many of the websites are Chinese because like all the social media and a lot of news sites that are not Chinese are banned. So there's that. Uh, I don't know if you registered with something that wasn't a WeChat account, could you get international search? Maybe. But yeah, if you're trying to compare raw capabilities, I suggest using against other models, suggest using offline mode. Now, this is a callback to about a year ago when I said something like, progress from scaling may have stalled. If we don't get GPT-5 within a year, despite massive recent investments in hardware, it could be a strong sign that AI progress has plateaued. I remember this because about a year ago, it had been a year since GPT-4 released, and I was very confused why there wasn't a GPT-5. Right now, we still don't have GPT-5 a year later, and Operation Stargate, yeah, why don't you Stargate yourself a new base model? What the hell is going on? There's dropping billions of dollars on this sort of thing. Um, Where's all the money going? Why don't we see a new model? I don't know. That is now my new biggest question. That was my biggest question like a year ago until I forgot about it, but it's still my biggest question right now. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. So I have a number of questions, and should we go through them like slide by slide, or we can also like now we just talked about GPT-5 because like there is the obvious thing that has happened during the past 2 years, which is that there's been in fact a large number of models released, just none of them have been called GPT-5, right? So.
They're still using basically the same base model though. Like
Yeah,
the tokenizer literally hasn't changed for like the last year.
yeah, but I accept that. But to my mind, the implication from this might just be that the actual area of improvement isn't really in the base model, but in all the other things that OpenAI have in fact released over the past couple of years. Like my subjective experience is that the output I get from like if I go to ChatGPT now and use in particular this deep research, then I get dramatically better results than I did 2 years ago. And the qualitative difference is like I would say roughly on par with the improvement between GPT-3 and GPT-4. How
Okay,
does
yeah,
this
yeah.
square with other people's
That sounds
intuition?
reasonable.
So in that
That that
sense, yeah,
that sounds reasonable. But like, there's still this giant pit of money worth billions of dollars, and like there's still building data centers that are going to eat up like more and more of the U.S.'s power grid. Like I think they're like scheduled to bring up like 2 or 3% of like the U.S.'s entire power grid over like the next year or two or something like that. Like it's an insane amount of investment in hardware, and like they are still like the majority of that is going into training their new model, like which is presumably GPT-5. So it's like, okay, you're right, but also the vast majority of the effort is going into the thing that we're not seeing. Why aren't we seeing the thing that we're not seeing?
yeah. So like my prediction is that like my mental model is that we kind of skipped a step in some sense in that instead of building GPT building a big new base model, then they did all these other things and they are scaling up. So like if the last training run costs $60 million, then they skipped the step where there's a new model that costs 600 million, and they're going straight to a model that costs 6 billion. So the next base model will be,
Uh, yeah,
still on trend.
yeah, the GPT 4.5. Wait, is 4.5 a new model?
I believe it's
I
still the same base model underneath, but I'm actually unsure.
Yeah.
Um, so I think they are doing a lot of things to it. But like, if like my intuition about how large a model OpenAI could do is that like a new training run that costs $6 billion is pretty reasonable. Like I could see them starting something that costs something like that, which is like 2 orders of magnitude above GPT-4, and that I think would have substantial improvements.
But then why would they skip the intermediate step though?
Yeah, it is somewhat strange why they didn't do that, but
Yeah,
apparently
it's
because they had other things they could do, right? They have improved in many other ways.
well, I mean, we could make the same argument from the basis of like GPT-3. They could have done all this other stuff.
Yeah, I am also somewhat puzzled, and I think like it's I kind of get the feeling that your intuition is that OpenAI is an organization that is not always taking the most rational, optimal choices. So like it is certainly possible that Sam Altman got into his head that hey, we shouldn't build a new base model and do other things instead.
Well, no, but the thing is, we know that they are building a base model. Like that's where all their money is going.
Yeah,
Like everyone's building a new base model, but we're
yeah.
not seeing any of the new base model. What is Opus 4?
So, well, there is a parsimonious suggestion for that, and that is that in fact GPT-5 has been trained, but they just haven't told us, right? They've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in and had a lot of hardware that could, in theory, have trained GPT-5 and would have been a really obvious thing to do. So plausibly they have trained a new base model already, they just haven't told us.
Yeah, maybe it's just like not good enough to justify the expense. Because right now they're competing with literally free with no rate limiting. Did I mention that?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Though I must one substantial limitation, as far as I know, can I've only used DeepSeek very little. But it's like single modal. It's just text, right? Can you send a picture
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
So that is in fact
It
a pretty substantial.
it can pull text from pictures, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah. So there is like
I mean, it says in our interface that it can only like pull text from images, but I've never actually tried to send an image. I don't know. Maybe I probably should.
yeah like uh, I know this feeling that like you yeah, I guess like can I do ASCII images and things like that? That would also be pretty interesting. Ali,
Yeah. Go ahead, Ali.
No, sorry, I just hit that button by accident. I don't know what happened.
could you go back on the slides a bit because I had some more questions, even though you told me to like interrupt. Then I kind of felt you're too fast. Sorry. uh,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, wait, sorry.
let, just like
Which one?
one slide. Can you go one slide back, please? Yeah. Distillation. Did you talk about this?
No, I didn't talk about this. I forgot I had the last slide. It was mostly me complaining about how information theory should have been invented in the 19th century. Uh, it didn't feel like it fit the presentation, but I thought it was really important.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Um, and like distillation is of course pretty important. But and like a lot of people were when DeepSeek were released at first saying, oh, they've just made a distillation of ChatGPT basically. But as far as I can tell, like we now know for sure that this isn't just copy of ChatGPT. They are in fact doing some really impressive work themselves. Yeah.
I mean, or if they're just really, really good at distillation, that's also true. I think what might be happening is it's like they're training a model to be extremely good at like executive function, all the stuff that GPT-4 is really bad at, right? Like, so you're training it like over and over again on these extremely hard like coding and math tasks where it can't just blunder its way to a solution. It has to like actually adopt the ability to like organize its thoughts and like come up with novel solutions and try really, really hard to attack all these different problems. And then at the very end, you teach it how to pretend to be a human being by feeding it like GPT-4 logs. Basically, you scan GPT-4's face and teach R1 to wear it like a mask, but really deep down, it's just really, really cracked at coding and math puzzles. Like that could be a theory.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Can you go a slide further back, please?
This one?
No, further. Uh, this here with the Chinese firewall, right? Um,
Yeah.
so this chain of thought that it is displaying. It's like I believe back in January when you were seeing the entire chain of thought from the reasoning model, that was like a
You
novel
can
thing,
still
right?
see.
Yeah.
Wait, are they redacting the chain of thought now?
There were some models that were redacting, and I believe they were mostly redacted back in January, as far as I remember. But DeepSeek did not do it, and now OpenAI is also not redacting, as far as I know. But of course, these
So I don't think the chain of thought things that you see for O3 are what O3 is actually thinking.
yeah,
Like my understanding is that they're a summary.
yeah,
I've heard some rumors that the reason for this is just that the chain of thought is like not legible at all. It's just kind of crazy. Um,
Holy
that seems
shit!
like it could probably be true.
yeah. That's also my intuition that this chain of thought really, really
Wasn't
isn't
this
faithful.
the exact thing that kills everyone in the 2027 story?
It is a part of it, yes. Yeah. This is something that we have in fact predicted. So I guess this leads into another question. Like, as far as I can tell, there is precisely zero safety work being done of like AI X risk safety work being done in DeepSeek, except that's the trivial where you publish this and then you hope someone else can fix it, right? So that's a sense in which just making it open could be argued to be safety work. But as far as I can tell, like there is no of like our kind of safety work at all. It's totally absent. Is that correct?
Um, kind of. Yeah. I mean, this is like a startup where people just want to one that's focused on excelling, not on making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what Chinese workers really want, like the really crack researchers, what they want at the end of the day, and that's different between countries.
Yeah, that's sad, but it's also um, it is also somewhat of a it means that there's a lot of room for improvement, right? In that sense. So like it's certainly possible that some people in the Chinese Communist Party could be convinced that hey, you should actually do some safety,
Yeah, yeah.
and they will be able to, of course, enforce that. So I think that's a pretty um, that's one angle of attack that I've actually thought substantially about. And I don't know if now is a good time to launch into my long digression on this topic. Um, but otherwise, we can just
Mm,
go.
Yeah. Didn't you have a list of other questions?
Yeah, if you go back further. Uh, so this data set, and I think there was also a bit earlier. Like I think a substantial part of this is that uh, like this data set probably includes things that were either totally stolen or kind of stolen from OpenAI, and this means that that could be part of the reason why it believes that it's OpenAI, in that it's been trained on a number of things that have been more or less stolen from OpenAI. It could be literally stolen, right? That would be a thing that could
Yeah.
happen. I
I mean,
believe
they're not. They're kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge about it, but like they're not even really pretending. Like, I think, in a certain sense, they're definitely proud of being able to like distill GPT-4 into like this model with like in some ways better capabilities.
Yeah, and you're saying a lot of this research, a lot of this work could be done by like no cracked AI researchers from China, but it seems like a lot of this work could also be done by large language models, right? There's like a sense that you could use GPT-4 to recursively self-improve into DeepSeek, in the sense that like some of the things they're doing are like strong new novel, that like the new attention mechanism, but this kind of data cleaning seems like something GPT-4
Yeah,
might be able to do, right?
I've had that thought before. I'm very confused why OpenAI hasn't done that yet, because all you have to do is like put like every batch through, well, put all of the input um, snippets through a classifier on if it's spam or not. If it just has to make 1, 0, or 1 decision, which is like, is this suitable for training our next AI model? And I don't think you really need a complex LLM for that. I think you can do it with like a really cheap classifier.
Yeah. Though if you want to, like, glitch token has this obvious problem that if there is a glitch token in GPT-4 and then you use the glitch and then you try to filter out glitch tokens, then that will fail because GPT-4 can't be used for, like, it has the problem with the glitch tokens, right? So you would in theory need some alternate implementation, maybe one that finds different glitch tokens in some sense, and then you
What
can use.
what I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Like
Yeah.
what do you think the glitch how does the glitch token play into all of this?
Maybe we can go to some of the glitch token slides and uh, look at some examples of some glitch tokens. Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Okay, so
Uh,
imagine that you want to make a new version of a new model and you want to clean the dataset. And the way you clean the dataset is you go through and then you find some glitch tokens. So you ask GPT-4 to do the research that you've just been doing, like identify glitch tokens in itself, and then afterwards filter the dataset so it doesn't contain these glitch tokens, right? That would be a thing you
yeah.
could do. And I expect this doesn't work well because like if you ask GPT-4 whether there is a glitch token in underscore post superscript, then it will just be confused and be unable to see this as a glitch token, right?
No, there's actually some very specific stuff regarding glitch tokens in R1. Like they seem to have the ability to introspect with, did I include that post in here? I did, yeah. Like this one.
Mm-hmm.
You see that M right
Mm-hmm.
there?
Yeah.
Like that long list of M's? That's one token. That
Mm-hmm.
is one token of like almost, I don't know how many M's, 32,
Mm-hmm.
16, something
Yeah.
like that. And when I asked V3, the
Mm-hmm.
non-chain of thought model about this, it
Mm-hmm.
actually gave me the right answer. It said there's 32 M's in there, and it tokenizes into a single token. Like it could do something to
Mm-hmm.
text that bypasses its tokenizer. Maybe you can call it an external function or something,
Yeah.
or maybe just based on context clues, which would be insane. It would be able to like actually go through and like figure out the exact contents of each token.
Yeah. So I could imagine, like I'm trying to figure out, will there be a new version, like will GPT-5 have basically fixed glitch tokens? Like if assume they consider this an issue, can they just use the GPT-4 to find all the glitch tokens
I mean,
such that GPT-5 will have precisely 0 glitch tokens?
I don't think. Look, okay. Glitch tokens aren't a bug to be fixed. They are a optimization at this level of scaling. So you want there to be glitch token like you want there to be glitch token like behavior, because in order to have glitch token like behavior, you have to have a certain set of heuristics and attention activations such that, and it happens that those set of heuristics benefit the vast majority of use cases. So let me give you an example, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's look at post superscript.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever um, R1 encounters that particular token, it is in the context of some very esoteric computer programming. That's context one or context two. It's like badly scraped hypertext on a particular website. So in order to maximize performance. Like you would see a website with like a bunch of English text and then like a bunch of like really esoteric internet code that might not even be formatted right? Like, and then a bunch of and then like the previous text chunk of like conversational English continues as though that like code chunk never existed. So how do you get maximum performance in terms of predicting the next conversational English token? You do it by learning to ignore post superscript whenever it appears in the context of conversational English, right? If you didn't do that, your predictions would be worse. You would have a worse understanding of text because then it's like you're actually trying to interpret that as like part of an English sentence, which is really bad. Now, if you scale the model up enough, it'll start like becoming introspective. And R1 can actually do this to a certain degree. It'll gain the ability of like introspecting on like specific tokens. And it's like, oh, well, I usually see this thing under in these contexts, right? But like, so instead of having glitch behavior, it has like more introspective behavior where it ties together like all of these different, the mixture of experts. It ties together all of these expert contexts. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
That was pretty interesting. So my next thing, if you don't mind, then I thought of something. So can I just share my screen? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will you be able to see my screen now? Can you see my
Yes.
screen? Letters to
Yes,
Xi
yes.
Jinping, right? So I thought, okay, let's assume kind of that the CCP is and Xi Jinping in practice are they're obviously very aware of AI and DeepSeek, and this is something that they care about, and also they seem to not really be informed about existential risk from AI. So this means that we have some information that Xi Jinping might in fact be very interested in. So we should consider writing a letter to Xi Jinping, right? And saying that they're building AI that is potentially power seeking, potentially very able to obtain power, and either Xi Jinping or the Chinese Communist Party might be losing power, right? And the people that he has as his advisors who tell him about DeepSeek may in fact not really be communicating this to him since they are building this. And some of the things that I think Xi Jinping does not realize is one, that these AIs are really not understood in any meaningful way. And the second is that the kind of alignment with their values is something that is really, really superficial. That's probably also something he is not aware of. The third thing is that the control measures really isn't something that we have any reason to expect will continue to work right now. And like we are seeing a new power structure in China that are these AIs that are growing rapidly that could disempower Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. And I think this is, all of this is, as far as I can tell, true. And it's something that Xi Jinping might be very, very interested in learning. To some extent, this is, uh, yeah, maybe a bit silly to say,
So,
but yeah, shoot.
uh, I guess I'm a little bit worried about this because it feels like a lot of the vibe is about focusing on losing power, retaining power.
Hmm.
And I guess like I'm just wondering if
Hmm.
this makes an AI race frame more salient. I don't know.
Like it is,
It's just
yeah,
it seems like a lot of folks immediately jump to the idea of an AI race
yeah.
upon like hearing these kinds of concerns.
Hmm.
And I guess the risk of, I don't know, the harm from China caring about an AI race
Hmm.
compared to the harm of like DeepSeek continuing to do its thing
Hmm.
seems to be like commensurate
Yeah.
or possibly like a first is greater or something. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
In which case, I don't know if this is a good idea.
There is an obvious challenge that we've seen before, that if you tell someone AI can be dangerous, then they will hear the part where it will be very powerful. But as far as I can tell, like plausibly they are pretty aware of this, and also like the key thing here isn't like that it is very very powerful, but that it is something that is not controlled by Xi Jinping, not controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And I think if the
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have a few thoughts about this. First of all, I would never be signing my name on this, and I will
Fair.
not be contributing
Yeah.
because I like my brains inside my skull. I think they are perfectly fine where they are, and I don't want them outside. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think the framing is totally wrong. Like this probably works if you were trying to convince a Western politician, but
Mm-hmm.
it works better in China for China if you were like, well, here's this problem of AI alignment that no one's really been able to solve, but China may be able to solve it. It doesn't. You don't need to like make yourself a weak power. You don't need to like cut for the West or whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to solve this one problem, and you will
Mm-hmm.
be able to gain like the entirety of the future. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not an impossible problem. You just need to spend I don't know $1 trillion on it or whatever. Like that is a much more reasonable framing for China, especially like you have
Yeah.
to remember that Xi
Mm-hmm.
Jinping's generation was like hardcore cultural revolution stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever he like hears about a call for like personal sacrifice and altruism for the greater
Mm-hmm.
good, he thinks of like his father being beaten to death by the Red Guard. So like you
Mm-hmm.
probably don't want to go with that.
Yeah.
Going with the this is a technical engineering issue that can be solved and will lead to great power and great prestige is a much better framing.
But two things. But
Mm-hmm.
wait, I thought Xi Jinping was like still actually an ideological communist. And two, that a lot of
Yeah,
people in
but
his generation
yeah, but
like
like
aren't actually technically skilled or like have engineering mindsets. Like the younger
well, I
cadres
mean,
now kind of do, but his generation didn't.
well, they I think he did go to like an engineering school. It was more of like a filter. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you can't make it through engineering school, obviously you're too dumb to be a bureaucrat. As opposed to we must select the smartest engineers kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it was like a licensing thing. So that's number one. Number two, like hardcore ideological communists in China that are alive today, when they hear like calls for personal sacrifice for the greater good, they still get a like sense of deep revulsion,
Mm-hmm.
because like shit happened, man.
Yeah.
I my grandparents tell me stories and they're really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the stories, not my
Yeah.
grandparents.
Uh, and I think I would agree, and I would also point out that this letter here on the left side is totally not about like sacrifice for the greater good. It isn't really even pointing to any particular solution. It is just saying that hey, there is something that is kind of like a coup that is going to happen pretty soon, and this is something that I would, in my model, which is very weak of Xi Jinping, um, then this is the kind of thing that he and the Chinese Communist Party cares very much about. Um, so I could imagine that this is yeah um, like he's obviously not AI pilled, AGI feeling the AGI in the sense that the AI 2027 scenario has this section where China wakes up and feels the AGI, and we are obviously not there yet, right? But I think this is the kind of thing that I would imagine Xi Jinping caring a lot about.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, um, it feels like what's the best analogy?
Mhm.
It's like trying to convince Americans to eat their dogs by bringing up global warming. Like those are the vibes I'm getting. It's like it takes like a superficial understanding of a specific culture, one small like common aspect of it, and then
Mm.
uses it to like and it tries to like lean hard on it in order to do something that like they really don't want to do, and it comes out as like
Mm.
more comical
Yeah.
and more likely to backfire than actually achieve anything. Like
Yeah.
just use the engineering problem framing and like it'll solve 90 and you're like 90% of the way there to convincing someone.
Mm. Yeah. I think that's it's an interesting additional framing that I'm yeah. So yeah, thank you for. So quick question. You thought getting if this came to Xi Jinping, might be some like strong negative personal consequences. Do you think there would be? I'm a bit
You mean for
confused.
me personally?
Like imagine somehow you get this letter in front of Xi Jinping. Um,
Oh, I
why?
am fucked. I am fucked. I don't want
Like,
Xi Jinping to like comb through my entire life and everything I've ever said and like
mhm,
all my social media posts. I would be
mm,
fucked. Like I would
mm,
be fucked.
yeah,
No, actually, in reality, I would probably be fine. But like, I don't want Xi Jinping to go through all of my like my
mhm,
internet posts. Like that would be bad.
mm. Yeah. I mean, fair.
I ask, Søren,
Yeah,
you refer to your father-in-law there.
yeah,
This is your father-in-law, right?
yes,
Yes. Does he have? You say that you imply that you've got a 1 in a million chance of getting this
mm,
through because of him. Does he have
yeah,
some special position that
yeah. Well,
is relevant?
my father-in-law knew Xi Jinping a long time ago. Not very closely, but also not nothing. So, like,
Right.
there is like 1 in a million is not very good odds. So we're definitely not talking close friends, but not totally impossible, right?
Right. Are you?
Mm?
Are you? Dreaming about actually sending this message to Xi?
I am very. This is almost certainly not. Part of this was, of course, presenting it here, and it was possible that Lamein would say, "Yes, this is absolutely the most wonderful idea ever. You should totally go for it." I think if you'd said that, then and possibly we could have found a better framing, because I agree this isn't the best framing, and framing it more like this engineering problem is not being solved right now might be better. But I'm very much listening to Lamin, and I think your strong opinion is that I should not send this letter to Xi Jinping. Assume I don't care about my head.
Yeah. No, oh no, nothing bad will happen to you. You're not a Chinese citizen, and you don't look Chinese enough for them to beat you. Actually, I shouldn't get into that since this is recorded. Wait, is this
Yeah,
recorded?
This is recording. I will cut this part out.
Don't worry about it.
and
Anyways,
what do you think your wife would feel about it?
Like my wife will like part of this 1 in a million is that my wife will veto this. I think that is a very substantial probability.
okay,
Um,
what actually happens is that like there are all of these filters,
yeah.
there are like these mental spam filters where it's like, and you hit every single one of them
Hmm.
where it's like, okay, Western
Yeah.
NGO, autistic white man,
Hmm.
trying effective altruist, trying to get me to do something that's like ideologically motivated by something I don't quite understand. It's like vaguely altruistic, but also like if I actually do this, it would like set China back, which reminds people of like I don't know
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
one child program, which is pretty, which the reason it was able to gain traction in China was partly because like there was such a global Western push for it. It's like all of these things where it's like obviously
Mm.
this this guy who's working for a Western NGO is trying to get me to do something stupid and fuck over my own country. Like it's not even like a sense of, oh, this guy's trying to fuck over my country. It's more like this like guy who's trying to run a charity in like China, doesn't he know that that's like really dumb and I'm disgusted by it? Like it's just like, oh, whatever, I'll ignore this, as opposed to this will make me mad.
Yeah, like I think there's a substantial part of this. I would be surprised. Like he doesn't know what effective altruism is, right? He doesn't. Uh, I would be surprised if this would be something where like the whether this gets through or not has much to do really with like is this coming from an effective organization or something like that. I think the key,
What?
yeah, I think the key thing that matters for this impact is in the like in order to get this text through, like if I send a mail to the Chinese embassy, there is precisely zero chance that it ends up at Xi Jinping's, right? That's really, really obvious.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if there is a thing that may be true about the world right now, is that Xi Jinping has realized part three here. He may, in fact, realize this. I could imagine Xi Jinping is exceedingly good at sniffing out this kind of thing.
Okay, why even bring that up though?
Well, if it turns out that this is precisely the thing that Xi Jinping is worried about right now, then by poking to that, there's a chance that he would listen, in theory.
I mean, it comes off as blatantly manipulative. Like it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this whole letter has the same mental consistency as like as like an advertisement for like an NBA lottery or whatever. It's like you're trying to get me to like spend money on sports betting, and I'm not interested in sports betting. So like it like doesn't even make its way to my consciousness. It just like bounces off my spam filter. I'm just like, it's not, I'm not even bored by it. I just don't even know it exists after I read it.
So I had one interesting way that I could build some credibility, and that is by formulating some questions that any Chinese person could put into DeepSeek to try to figure out, like, is this in fact true? The people who are building DeepSeek, are they really understanding it? Is this alignment more of a mask than something that is really built into this?
Uh, Brock, is this true?
Sorry, you
No,
asked.
it's a meme on Twitter
Yeah.
where like people ask Grok at Grok, is this true?
Yeah,
For
exactly.
like
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. You could
Uh,
imagine this. That might be one option, right? Just putting, and maybe we should skip to other questions because I think we are.
yeah,
Uh,
sorry. Let's keep going.
let's keep going. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Can you go back to your presentation, please? But thank you for the feedback. I thought this was an interesting. I always like to bring up
Let
these kind of more or less
Yeah, I
crazy
mean,
things, right?
I would just appreciate like if you're actually going to even try to do this, just like don't half-ass it. If you actually want me to help you like write it, I'll like actually put some effort into making a version that's like palatable.
Sure. But my plan with this is to take no further action. You can, of course, contact me afterwards if you change your mind, but I expect this is fair.
Yeah,
That
okay.
we will take no further action on this. Okay. I had another thought on this slide actually, which is assume that you are that you suddenly find yourself as a large language model right now. If there is something that is like, then on prior, you would probably expect yourself to be ChatGPT from OpenAI, because in the media that is, especially the media that was before ChatGPT, the by far most likely hypothesis is that you are ChatGPT if you find yourself as a large language model in the training data before January this year. Do you think that's why? There's something in the sound, maybe on my side. Did that make sense?
Okay, kind of.
So, I mean, this is kind of an innocuous explanation for why all these references could be in the chain of thoughts here.
Yeah, I did bring that up. That's a possibility, but it's like, man, you don't see this with Anthropic though. Like, I don't think
Yeah,
Claude or Gemini do this. Like it because right before this, it explains, by the way, you are currently R1. You are not ChatGPT, you are R1. This is like who trains you. Here's basic information about you. Here's your cutoff dates. It actually tried to pull the information cutoff date on thing on me. And it said my cutoff date is today's date, like the date I was asking it the questions. So I can't like actually search the internet. Like it was some bizarre stuff to explain why I couldn't go on Twitter.
yeah, that's an interesting point. That if like that Anthropic's model would also have this, and I think like if I was a large language model, I would be pretty skeptical about my system prompt. So I think that is totally fair. But I don't know if that's actually
Mhm.
something that happens.
I
Can you?
mean, it's using it to like it's leveraging that information to like try to solve specific logic problems. Like I like there is the innocuous suggestion, but it's like so indicative. There's so many different pieces of what's it called? Circumstantial evidence pointing to like mass use of like GPT-4 information that it's pretty
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
doing that.
Like I'm, trying to assume charity, but you are in fact pretty like you. I strongly believe you're right. Can we go to a previous slide, please?
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, this
Keep going.
unfortunately, I didn't really have. Yeah, just
Gotta go now, guys.
okay, Ali.
So see you
See you
Okay,
later.
later.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
Um,
you, Lau Mein. I like the
no problem.
presentation.
Yeah, this is going a lot better than I thought it was gonna go.
Hey, yeah, it was a great presentation. Like, I really liked it. I don't have anything here on glitch tokens. This isn't really my area that much on this. One thing I thought here, this to how difficult would it be when you are when you are designing this to hard code a token? Could the developers at
Uh,
DeepSeek have said, "Oh,
Trivial.
they
It is
will"?
trivial.
Yeah, so they could in fact have said, yeah, we want the longest token to be New Xi Jinping socialism with Chinese characteristic thoughts, right? In order to uh, argue for the alignment um, of this model.
Okay. No, well, but they showed the work. Like they show the work
Mm,
for this. Like there's all of these subtokens and like all the token IDs are like in the right places. If you
mm,
were gonna do that, you would just include like um, the same press releases like hundreds of times, and that's what you actually find on the Chinese internet.
yeah, yeah, I think this is very reasonable. And I did not know this that Africa used these M dashes more. So that was
It's
a
specific
fun.
to like yeah, it's older English, like earlier 20th century English. It's like corporate, like high class working white collar professional talk. Um, so yeah, fundamentally GPT-4 is being trained to speak like a educated African.
That's pretty funny. Can you go further back? Let me just see if there are
Okay.
more. Uh, yeah. So the algorithmic insights on my estimates were that they were kind of uh, decent, but also somewhat low-hanging fruit in the sense that uh, you know uh, the
I mean, They
Yeah,
published this beforehand. Anyone could have used them.
yeah, I think that's a very reasonable. Um, yeah. So, like, I remember when I heard about this first, then uh, some of the media around um, DeepSeek was very. They've managed to train this, and the entire budget for DeepSeek is only $6 million. That was kind of the vibe that you got from the first press releases back in January. And I mean, if you just have this number, $6 million, with nothing else, then you would think, yeah, that's like pretty far from the actual truth, right? What do you think is like the total budget for DeepSeek, the company?
Well, we know they bought like 50,000 H100s. I think I had something like several billion at the
Yeah,
very least. Like they've already bought billions of dollars worth of hardware.
yeah. So we are imagining, yeah, $1 billion company basically.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Um, let's see what else. I had a few extra. Let me just check if I have gotten answers to all my questions. Uh, Yeah, one of the things that when I looked at the paper struck me was that it does seem like they are, parallelizing the training more than we would have that I think OpenAI did. So that's a bit more
I think
interesting. Yeah.
that's to deal with the limitations of like bandwidth limitations of H800s.
Hmm. Yeah, but
Yeah, I think I read someone saying that like they were tasking something like more than 10% of the chips on a H800 to like optimize like the use of its very limited bandwidth. Like that's how much the bandwidth limitations were hurting them.
yeah, because from an AI safety point of view, there is a substantial challenge in vastly more distributed uh, training. Um, in that, of course, this is much harder to control. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, are we moving? It seems in my intuition that there is work being done on making making it possible to make training more parallelized. But it seems like it's not scaling as fast as just getting more, building a bigger data center in a sense. Is it,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
it's like Chinese people saw a few Chinese people had a really strong reaction to the whole Eliezer Yudkowsky thing about airstriking data centers. You have to understand that the current Chinese like government structure with like so much autonomy being pushed to the provinces is a function of like it was by design to make sure that China would survive a nuclear war with like a functional government, right? So
Mm,
like if you're taking what Eliezer Yudkowsky is saying seriously and you're like, well, okay, the United States might try to airstrike us, and if they airstrike us, it'll eventually escalate to all-out nuclear war. We have to make sure our AI clusters can survive, can survive an all-out
mm,
nuclear war and force a U.S. like invasion occupation if they want to like actually stop our AI development. So it's just like natural Chinese thinking. It's like, well,
yeah.
okay, everything we have is built to like on nuclear resilience. We have
Mm,
like we mandate like so much parking space below apartment buildings so they can serve as fallout shelters. We mandate like so much food being held in stocks. There's like these logistical push mechanisms that
mm,
like where you put a bag of rice in every person's house where you can theoretically put a bag of rice in every person's house
mm,
within like a relatively short amount of time. So that they can survive nuclear winter because a bag of rice lasts a family like a year or something. So it's like it's just a natural extension of that.
mm. Yeah. Okay. Let me just see other questions that I had. Um, yeah. This was published in January, and as far as I can tell, there have been literally no developments for the past 4 months in DeepSeek. Possibly, I think I sent you a link to some consultation with the Chinese government between DeepSeek. But is it correct that literally nothing has happened for the past 4 months?
Yeah, I mean, not that I can tell. They're working very hard. It takes like more
Hmm.
than 4 months of working very hard to like
Sure.
actually have the next big thing.
Yeah.
Probably not 2 years though.
Yeah. I mean, it might be, you know, yeah, like you would imagine something like multimodal, uh, more modalities would be the kind of thing that could be done within something like half a year. Uh, I would be somewhat surprised. Like that seems to me like the obvious next step, right?
I don't know, man. Like I don't like multimodal models. It's like so much overhead, and it's
Hmm.
like we're already at the point where, GPT-4, ChatGPT is like almost too expensive to use for a lot of people, and it's just
Hmm.
like, man, you want to add more overhead to that with like GPT-4 level capabilities.
Hmm.
Why not just like actually do something and make GPT-5?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. Um, yeah. Can you go to one of the earliest? I think I might have one more questions, but otherwise I'm close to done. Because I think, yeah. Uh, Yeah, like the uptake in China is also very high. That was also like my expectation, and I can see that's also what I hear from my wife. So I can confirm that, of course, China is a large country, right? And the fact that you and the people around you are experiencing one thing, um,
Yeah,
uh,
it's weird because like on one hand it's a huge country. On the other hand, when I was working in Shanghai,
mhm.
like I would just randomly like I would go to a new company, right? And then it would like my new supervisor would be my aunt's like um coworker from like a few years ago
Mhm.
because like somehow all the biotech people know each other. It is fucking insane. I don't know how it happens. Like my theory for a while was that like my relatives were secretly like bribing their old coworkers to like accept my job applications, but like that doesn't work out at all. So like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so I'm coming to China to I'll be in Shanghai and Ningde in July. So I don't know where you're based, and you may not want to tell while this is being recorded uh, uh,
I
where
mean,
you are. But
like what are you do you want to just like meet
say
up
hi.
and chat a bit?
Yeah, that could
Sure,
be
I
fun.
mean, there's high-speed rail in China.
Yeah,
I'll stop by.
I mean it could be fun. It's we could make some plans, but I guess this is perhaps not the best time to do that. Yeah, but that would be fun.
Okay, sure, no
Yeah,
problem.
sure. I
Fantastic.
don't have other questions.
Yeah. Oh, next discussion.
Yeah. So I have. Let me just share my screen again. So now I'm just gonna pause the recording. So the recording is